This episode is made possible by New Masters Academy, the world's #1 online art school. Click the link down below for a free 7-day trial. Thank you, New Masters Academy. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Honey and Absinthe After Hours podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Vincent, a background designer for animation.
And I'm Janet, the ex-Disney artist turned independent creator, and this is a podcast about all things art, business, and whatever we feel like.
Now today we're going to talk about, should you go to art school during quarantine?
Yes. So there has been a lot of education news lately, and at least here in Southern California, in Los Angeles specifically, K-12 schools have been ordered to go online only. And this is also the case for a lot of colleges and universities in the United States. But because of some recent government things, a lot of schools are trying to go some kind of hybrid model where some international students or some particular classes will come in in some days of the week, while the rest of the class is going to be online. Which, I don't really want to get into politics in this podcast, but there's this one statement that I saw from many colleges and universities in the United States that just made my eyes roll.
What did they say?
So they were saying something along the lines of the government isn't taking into consideration the students' hopes and dreams, as if the school has anything to do with the success of these students' hopes and dreams. And they were clearly playing on the emotions of parents and students to win some kind of political argument, which I thought was completely wrong, because a university does not have anything to do with whether an individual accomplishes their hopes and dreams, which it made me think, because I know what schools actually are, at least colleges and universities in America. They are a business, even if they are considered non-profit, because technically the school we went to, Art Center, is considered non-profit, but most non-profits work like a for-profit company, and it doesn't matter if you are a state school or if you are a private institution. It's a business. And what do businesses want? Money! Not that that's a bad thing, but if you reframe your mind and you look back at all these colleges' statements, they do not care about you. They care about the money you will give them. So you need to be careful when looking at some of these things. But that brings me into the topic of whether or not you should even go to art school right now. There are a lot of people who, ever since I became super active here on YouTube, and my viral video, I've noticed that people really appreciate my honesty and transparency. So I've gotten a lot of emails from students of all experiences, I guess, experience levels, from high school students who are graduating and trying to decide which college to go to, students who are still in college, and students who are graduating or have graduated and are trying to find work. And there are some common through lines that I have seen that these students, in my opinion, have been lied to by their universities, their colleges. And that's awful, because to me it feels like these institutions are preying on a young person's hopes and dreams, their desperation, and in a way their ignorance, because they're going to these schools to be educated. Their ignorance and trying to sell them more than they can actually offer. And an example would be in this one email, this student was trying to pick between different colleges, and one happened to be kind of a prestigious dream college of theirs. And they were saying, well, I kind of want to go to this dream school of mine because they have told me that so-and-so graduated from this school, implying that the school can give them some kind of connection in order to get hired, specifically in animation. And I thought, whoa, that is very wrong. And I really related to the student because I had a similar assumption when I chose to go to Art Center. But first, I want to ask you, why did you choose to go to Art Center?
Oh, Art Center was the only art school that I knew of for a very, very, very long time. So I was 12 years old, and Metroid Prime had come out on the Nintendo GameCube, and I remember playing it, and I had to go to my relative's house for a week. I think it was like the holidays. And at this time, my relative was dating this dude who happened to work at DreamWorks. And I remember playing this game, Metroid Prime, and he would just watch me play and, couch co-op. What was that thing that you don't like me doing?
Backseat game?
Yeah, he would do that thing, but he would teach me things like, you need to pay attention to these design things because they're telling you how to, like, where to go and where to be, and you need to always check your map, and you need to be thorough. If you need to do the Janet thing. Janet loves to look through every single nook and cranny and look at every single little thing in a video game.
Yeah.
He basically told me that I should do that too. All this to say that, like, I thought this dude was really cool and interesting because, like, here's an adult who was, usually adults go like, what the heck are you doing? But this one was telling me how to play a video game properly.
Right. Giving you pointers.
Yeah. So then a little bit later, I talked to my relative, and then she was showing me this binder of some drawings he had given her, and he had given her some drawings that she posted up on her wall, and a few of them were turnarounds. These really beautiful hand-drawn, almost Lilo and Stitch type characters. Like there were turnarounds, and I remember there were some designs and some scenes, and I remember thinking, like, and I was, I'm 12 and I'm drawing, and I know that, like, drawing's my thing. I'm the class artist person, like, that's my thing.
The artist of the school.
Yeah, the artist of the school, which a lot of artists are. And I couldn't help but feel like, wow, that guy knows how to draw like this. And then I asked my relative, and she was like, yeah, this is his homework. And I was like, what? This is his homework? And he's like, yeah, like, it's like you. Instead of you going home and you, like, study and read books and all that stuff, he would go to school and draw. And I was like, whoa, what school is this? What is this, like a college? And, like, she said, yeah, it's Art Center College of Design. And from then on, I was 12. I don't think about college. Come on, I'm 12 years old. I'm playing a video game, as if I care. But that moment stuck with me forever because it was the first time I ever, like, was face to face with a professional looking drawing. But yeah, that was my story, and that's the reason why I chose Art Center. I mean, as I had this scholarship program that you and I were in, and then they helped us introduce us to, like, CalArts and Laguna and all these places that are nearby, Otis. But because of that interaction with this person who worked at DreamWorks, I knew that Art Center was a school for me.
Yeah, and when you told me the reason why you chose Art Center, I was like, wow.
It's like epic story, isn't it? Don't you like that story?
Yeah, it's a really unique one.
Yeah,
because
it's a cool story.
Not everyone has basically kind of like a relative who not only works in the industry, but also could have shown you like his student work.
Mind you, I haven't had any interaction with this person whatsoever since that time.
Yeah.
At
Like
all.
one time. Yeah.
At all. But he was there in that place and time for me to get inspired to go to the school.
Yeah, and so your reason for choosing Art Center was, like, in my opinion, so pure and like truly what you should be. The reason why you should choose to go to any school, it should be that reason. It should be because I want to learn how to draw and paint.
Yeah, I knew that, like, oh wow. I immediately thought it was like Hogwarts or something.
Yeah,
Like you know, you don't leave Hogwarts as the greatest magician in the world. You see Hermione and Ron and Harry, they have to work hard. Especially Hermione.
And
that's what I thought art school was.
And I was like, wow, that's such a, like, that's truly what art school is. You go there to learn and paint. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, you're different. Because for me and everyone I grew up with, why do you choose to go to the school you go to? I really think deeply about this. It's because you're assuming, as a little like 17, 18-year-old graduating high school, you're assuming I choose to go to this school because hopefully it prepares me for real life after, so I can get a job. Sure, there's a lot of like, oh, I want to party, I want to do this, I want to do that, and the school has certain things. But for the most part, you're assuming the college will prepare you for getting a job. That is not really what colleges do these days, sadly. But that was my assumption.
So how and why did you choose Art Center?
Yeah, so for me, the school district that I grew up in was very, very good. And they are very good at forcing you to prepare yourself, honestly, for the future. And one of the assignments that you have to do in order to graduate was to basically do a 10-page essay, and including like all this research in at least, I think, 5 different schools. You have to know how much they cost, the admissions process, the majors they offer, and the differences between them, and then you have to tell the school why you decided to apply for whichever one, which one you think is the best. And then you have to categorize them as, this is my dream school, this is my this is where I think I belong, like in terms of like skill level, and how well you succeeded in high school. And this is like my backup, my like, oh, I'm sure I can get into this one, I'll go there, whatever. So I had researched a lot. I researched a lot of different art schools across the country, and I wasn't going to consider anything else, because in my in my head I was like, this is the assumption that most people have. The colleges, the more prestigious the college, the better of a chance you will have to get a job afterwards.
That's not true, though.
Completely not true. Completely, like, even Harvard. I have friends in like all sorts of Ivy League schools who have graduated. It doesn't mean anything other than you graduated from an Ivy League school. It doesn't, like, just because you have that on your resume does not mean that it will be easier for you to get whatever job that you want. I know that's really hard to believe for some parents and for some students, but prestige is all branding. It's like, why?
It's true.
Yeah, it's all like, why do you buy Nike versus Payless?
Rest in peace, Payless.
Yeah, rest in peace. But because of branding, and prestige works the exact same way. It doesn't necessarily mean one is more high quality than the other. So that's so the reason why I chose Art Center is because I did all this research and I decided that it was between 2 or 3 options, and for me, Art Center seemed like the best fit in terms of how I am. I was looking at CalArts, I was looking at Art Center, and I was looking at Laguna because it had a game art program at the time. And I had visited all these schools, and to me, CalArts seemed like a party school, and Laguna was out in the middle of nowhere. So Art Center,
That's where you go to die.
yeah, to like work hard,
Yeah.
which is what I wanted. But I also picked it because, you assume these prestigious schools give you a better education. Even any kind of little upper hand that can give you an in
Might be
into
enough for you.
to make you hireable.
Yeah.
To hopefully you don't you pay all this money for a good education so that you can be an upstanding human being and get a job. And so I think schools know this. In my opinion, schools take advantage of this knowledge, ignorance, lack of knowledge, I guess, and this assumption that colleges and universities somehow prepare you for the real world, which no, they literally just teach you a thing. They don't prepare you for anything. And so this person who emailed me, I really related to what they were saying. They were saying that so-and-so school was implying that they had anything to do with the success of their alumni, that whether their education is like top-notch or they somehow, this email, they said that they thought this school gives them connections. And I was like, no, you're making the same exact mistake that I made back when I was deciding what school to go to. These schools do not give you any kind of connection to anything. I know that you all will work hard. Everyone who's emailed me, they all seem like hardworking people. That's not the issue.
Yeah.
They're saying they have so much tunnel vision, whether it's to get into animation or to get hired and to hopefully not become the starving artist that maybe their family thinks they will become. They're so desperate that schools are taking advantage of that. They're selling them things they cannot sell them. Like no, our school did not give us any sort of connection. If anything, what they really mean is the connections you make in the school, but that is solely dependent on the individual. If you choose to go through school not making any friends, you're not going to come out of it with any connections.
Yeah, that's why we said, I think in our second or third podcast, where we said something like, make friends, don't make enemies in art school, especially. Those are the people you work with for the rest of your career, actually.
And that's also assuming like you are in a classroom full of people who will succeed one day. Because there's it's really sad to say, but there are so many classes that like everyone in that class will not work in the industry. There are a lot of people I've seen in less motivated classes where like it doesn't matter if you made friends with all of them if you were in that class, because no one, like they have different careers now. Like they didn't make it in the arts. So that's not something, versus like there are plenty of classes that are like full of super motivated people, and then like if you made friends with everyone, everyone props each other up and everyone gets hired. And so like these schools, they cannot promise that. They cannot promise any kind of connection or even assume that the reason why their alumni is so prestigious, I guess, or famous, or whatever you want to call it, had anything to do with them, with the education that you're paying for. Another very awful thing that these schools have been doing, and this actually happened to me. I don't think it happened to you because you knew exactly what you wanted, and what the major you wanted to get in.
Mm-hmm.
So in this email, this person was telling me that even though they got into their dream school, they got into a major that they did not apply for.
Oh, man.
The school had accepted them for motion design, but what they really wanted to do was animation. And they got into an animation program in a different school, but it's not their dream school. So they were asking me, should I just go to my dream school? The school is telling me, oh, they're similar, so I might as well, I should do it, right? And and I was like, wait a second. I actually have experience in both of these fields, and those are two different things.
Yeah, completely different.
Let me show you what motion design is, and you obviously know what animation is because it's the most well advertised and branded job out there. And I was like, the school accepted this person for a major that they did not apply for. And trying to convince them that these programs are similar. They're similar, but not really, not really at all, actually.
For those who don't really, who are a little unclear on this, explain it for them.
Motion design is basically advertising. It's basically commercials. And
Like the stuff that you see in front of ESPN and
yeah.
and trailers a lot of the
Yeah,
time too.
so the kind of animating you're doing is in After Effects, and it's basically like if you see any type of graphic stuff in commercials that's animated technically by a motion designer. Animation is animation, like you know what, like cartoons on TV and movies, animated movies. So you can see how those are like yes, in a way you animate, you do the act of animation, but those are very different fields. And I was like, oh, this happened to me too when I thought about it, because when I had applied for Art Center, I was applying for the entertainment design track. Granted, it worked out fine for me because I technically did want to do illustration, and but what ended up happening was they're like, oh, there's a very limited amount of people we accept for the entertainment design track, but we have this other thing called entertainment arts, which is similar, but I don't know about it now, but back then entertainment design and illustration were very different. Yes, you both illustrate sometimes, but you learn completely different things at the time. One, you learn photo bashing and how to make things real, so you get a Bachelor of Science degree, like you can actually model stuff. And then illustration is illustration. It's a Bachelor's of Arts, and you are an illustrator. And, you know, even though it worked out fine for me, for the most part, luckily, I think that's very shady for these schools to be trying to convince you to go to their school because they know exactly how prestigious, how well their branding is, and to try to convince you to go at any means necessary, to convince you that you who have no idea what motion design is, even, because I really had to explain it to this person, that it's some kind of like in still, like, oh, we're still teaching you animation, not knowing, like, what if this person really did want to learn animation, got into the school, paid a full year's tuition just to realize, oh, this is not what I signed up for.
If this individual wants to go to a school, I hope they're doing what they want to do and paying all this money to learn the things that they want to learn, and not just go to the school because they just get to go to the school. Yeah. You know?
So, I've been listening to Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, and this book has really helped me figure out how to run my business and how to be motivated during these times, and I really recommend it. And if you want to listen to this audiobook, head over to audibletrial.com/the Honey and Absinthe podcast, where you will get 1 free audiobook and 2 free Audible original audiobooks, so 3 audiobooks in total. So just head over to audibletrial.com/the Honey and Absinthe podcast. And one thing to note is, if you want to click the link, make sure to turn off ad block, because I've noticed that the link doesn't work if you have ad block on. So again, head over to audibletrial.com/the Honey and Absinthe podcast. And finally, I think like another art school lie/myth, I guess, that I think is perpetrated by them is the idea that you can't get this education anywhere else. That it's like, we are prestigious for a reason. If you want the best education possible, or whatever, it only happens here. And this is why they call it a dream school for a reason. They like when you categorize the different schools you want to go to, there's a reason why all like the prestige of a school matters. And you know, in a way, it's true before quarantine.
Yeah.
Because like our education, it was it is an education that is not comparable to online courses by themselves. Like, you can't just take an online course and not supplement it with any kind of in-person training and have it come at least close to like the in-classroom training that we had. It's different to learn even how to paint when like you're there and you can like see the consistency of the paint, that like when your teacher's demoing something,
that's a big deal.
The consistency of paint is important, and or like seeing exactly what proportion of colors they used in order to make that color, or like there's so much visually and physically that is involved in learning, art in particular.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a lot of audience members who are like, well, there's a way you could just, show the camera with the palette and all this stuff, but it's not like standing there and having the opportunity to watch, pay attention to what you want to pay attention to, and you're able to ask questions whenever you have one.
Yeah.
That's really important.
Mm-hmm.
That you're not getting if you're just going to take Zoom classes.
Yeah, exactly. So in a way, yes, there is an aspect of the education that is like, you can only get that there. Now, when every class is going in like our Zoom classes, where you're basically getting lectured at, or like if you are seeing demos, it's through a screen, which is very different from seeing it in person, which I just thought like, no, if the classes are going digital, going online, you can get that class elsewhere. Literally, like on New Masters Academy, like you can literally get that elsewhere.
A lot of these teachers are teaching there already, so you might as well.
Yeah.
If this is the dilemma, if you're going to go take Zoom classes, you might as well take New Masters Academy and not pay an ungodly amount.
Thousands of dollars. Yeah. So that brings me into the topic of like, if you are deciding to go to art school in the fall of 2020 during quarantine,
don't do it.
You have to really think, is it worth it? Is it worth the money that you pay?
Right.
Because these are just Zoom classes. If you're going to take online courses to begin with, just take online courses and you're saving so much money.
Right. And who knows, maybe you'll find out that that's actually the mode you'd like to learn from. And there's also something I've been thinking about too. It's like there are a lot of teachers, professors, especially in this Los Angeles area, who work in the industry or have been teaching in these schools for a long time. What's stopping a student, especially these days, for private lessons, just reaching out themselves like, hey, I know this quarantine thing is kind of crazy. We can't be in a big crowd, but I'll offer you this amount every single week, and then we'll meet, and then you teach me what you usually teach people in classes, I'll wear face masks or whatever it is.
Yeah, like there are alternatives to learning during the rest of this year.
Right.
That does not require you to pay so much money to these art schools. Even if you're not necessarily paying like art school money, you're like, even if you're going to a state school, even if whatever, that's still like, I feel like people have a really poor understanding of the value of money, but especially when you're that young. But it takes a lot to even earn $1,000, to $2,000, $3,000, whatever thousands of dollars you're paying to any school. Why are you going to school with like paying that much for it when they're all just like online courses at the end of the day? And again, like, even though online courses are a lot cheaper than art school, you probably will have to try a lot of different kinds, because they're not all built the same. Not everyone are great teachers. Not because they can't be, because, some people don't have as much teaching experience, and it takes time to learn how to be a good teacher.
Right.
And I haven't taken a whole lot of online courses, but I have taken some, and you will probably need to figure out who you like to learn from. Honestly, if one online course doesn't work for you, try a different one, try a different one, try a different one. It doesn't mean online courses don't work. It just means you need to find good ones. So, for example, we have Masterclass, and we love Masterclass.
We do.
But it's not really an online course.
Yeah, you get these little seminars, which are mostly like Janet's talking head videos.
Yeah.
They're more like those instead of actual learning stuff. Especially, I mean, you see that some teachers take it more seriously and further than others.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's talking head videos and some homework assignments here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And you're, of course, largely responsible, say, like if you're taking like a film class, to watch all the movies that they recommend or that they talked about in the seminar. So, it's not the best. I think if you want a better film school experience, we talked about it in the last podcast, you should just get Criterion Channel. Watch all the supplementary material, watch the movies again and again with the director's commentary, and write notes.
Right.
That's really great. And then, like, if you can, when you're filled with inspiration, go out there and make your own little project. I think that is the film school experience.
Yeah.
A lot better than something like Masterclass. So like you said, not every education service is the best.
Right. And so there's that, which is very like hands-on. These are just kind of like TED Talks, lectures. Yeah. They don't really give you homework. They don't really give you any kind of transformation by the end of it. You're not going to become a better filmmaker after these courses. Not really. Unless you really go out of your way to do things like make a short film on your own. Right. Versus there are a lot of other courses I've taken that they are very instructional, and they're very in a way kind of formulaic, where they'll hold your hand from the beginning. If it's a super beginner course and they're assuming you know absolutely nothing, they really hold your hand and take you all the way through. And if they have homework, they have worksheets, they have demos, they have all these things, and they will show you that if you just do the coursework, if you just do what I tell you to do, you will get better. It's very actionable steps on how to go from beginner to intermediate, and the best courses take you from beginner to expert. Yeah. So you really have to try a lot of different courses, and even if you do,
and a lot of these courses provide a trial too. Yeah. So please try before you commit to a course.
and like even if you end up trying like so many courses, it's still cheaper than art school.
Yeah.
Still cheaper than going to university this fall.
For art especially, I've taken, I went to art school and graduated art school. I also went to workshops with you, drawing workshops, in terms of like, how to make a really cool background or how to draw with gesture. And I've taken online courses where, I watch some of my favorite people paint and try to sponge up as much information as possible. And it's all different, but for someone like me, I really, really, really need the pressure, and there's no other way I'd like to say it than like I need a gun to my head to let me to make sure that like you need to do this. Like that's why I went to art school. I needed like the discipline. And now that I have some, I'm not saying I have a lot, but now that I have some discipline, I can take these online courses. And it's like when you're young, especially, and you really, really want this, you take these online courses and you just like run with them.
Yeah. Well, for you, I'm talking in particular like the differences between you've taken a bunch of different painting courses, and not all painting courses are the same.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's this one painting course from this really big animation person, and he does a pretty good job like explaining his process. It's just one of those things where a lot is left unsaid, and it requires a lot of really, really paying attention to what the instructor is doing in order for you to really learn.
Yeah, so it's not taught as well. And it's...
I wouldn't say that, but like that's a very Janet way of saying it.
In my opinion, it felt like a lot of demos and not actual teaching.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there was this other course that I took where these two great professional artists who know how to paint are teaching this painting course, and they are very hand-holdy about it. And for someone like me, that's what I like. I mean, it's all personal preference. Like I don't know what the skill level of person is. Maybe they prefer the first teacher because they don't want to start from grayscale. They don't want to start with grayscale, soft light, overcast light,
right?
Because it's like boring and all that stuff. But sometimes when you really, really want to learn something, you got to really take your time and do it with baby steps and all that.
I mean, I believe completely in always like revisiting the basics and the foundations and everything. And even if it bores you, it's so important.
Like in a previous podcast, we talked about how going to the workshop is like batting practice. And if you're a musician, it's sort of like doing your scales, I guess.
Yeah. And also, it might be like out of left field, but you've also been taking this guitar course.
Yeah. I'm taking 3 guitar courses.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just one.
I'm taking my guitar teacher. Like he finally opened up shot like his little studio area, and he's taking private lessons, of course, but with the whole quarantine caution thing, it's really uncomfortable, but we're playing together in this room and we're both wearing masks. It's ridiculous, but these are the times we live in. And then I take this supplementary class. I consider it a supplementary class, and it's this truefire.com thing. And like every Christmas I like went on a shopping spree because their classes not to shit on TrueFire, but their classes were like they're $5 a pop. So I bought a good handful, and then like I would look at these and like it's a lot of I play guitar, a lot of licks, a lot of kind of going through different vamps from popular songs, but not playing it exactly because they could get in trouble. That type of stuff. But it's more it's less handholdy, obviously, because it's you're completely responsible for going down the list of lessons and just doing these exercises. It feels like a lot of exercises, which is great, which I do use. But there's this one class, and you got really inspired recently because I've been super into this. Just it's it's quarantine, and I'm noticing a lot of people because I troll Craigslist a lot for gear, and we have a lot of you having wifey moments.
Oh,
about
please
me.
don't buy a random amp out of nowhere.
Please. And then I go, okay, fine. But like I look at Craigslist a lot, and like there aren't that many. I and this is a habit I've been doing for years, ever since I was in high school. I used to troll Craigslist and look at all the equipment that they have, and it's not nearly as much as it used to be. And I think a lot of people are doing what I'm doing. They're like, oh shit, I have all this time. Like it's kind of amazing how much time everybody, you and I, us working professionals, waste driving to and fro work, and all of a sudden we have all this time available, like available to us. So I thought it would be, like for the first couple months, because it was kind of sad and weird and crazy. We played video games a lot, like a lot, and ate a lot of ice cream. But then, you start to realize like, okay, this is kind of a thing. I can't go to work physically anymore, or as of right now, and I have to stay at home a lot. And what better thing to do than to learn an instrument? So I've been doing this a lot, and I was playing, Janet works behind me in our little studio space, and like we kind of work side by side, and I would just play music or YouTube guitar stuff really loud, and then I basically played and showed you this video of this teacher from Berkeley, very famous. I'm sure if anybody plays guitar, they'll know who I'm talking about. Tomo Fujita from Berkeley, has taught for 25 years, one of the most celebrated teachers out there. And he's like super celebrated for one. What's his biggest selling point? Can you tell me what is Tomo Fujita's biggest selling point?
He taught John Mayer.
And it's like every single video you see of Tomo's in his YouTube channel, you see somebody says, did you know he taught John Mayer? Did you know he was John Mayer's sensei? And
oh my
like,
God.
Yes, we know. So Tomo Fujita is this amazing guitar instructor and musician. His like, go check out his stuff. It's on Spotify. But he's this amazing instructor who's been teaching at Berkeley for 25 years. His channel is amazing. He has videos of him jamming with his students, which is phenomenal. I highly recommend you watch those videos, especially, just watch like the especially for artists. You understand the relationship between art school teacher and artist and all that stuff. It's really neat to see the dynamic between
music teacher,
music, like somebody teaching a kid music, and like highly recommend checking out his videos and his video playing Sunny with one of the instructors named Neil. Highly recommend this. It's amazing. It's an amazing jam. Anyway, I digress, because like I'm just really passionate about these people. They're so talented. But what is so fascinating is recently he came out with this subscription service for about $10 a month, which is, to me,
a steal.
The biggest steal I've like. It's $10 a month, and it's basically Tomo's kind of service in which he kind of holds your hand from his philosophies on like how to learn guitar. And I could tell because you are flirting very soon with the idea of having an online course, right? Yeah. So you've been actually you subscribe to other people's, independent online courses. I guess that's how you defined it. And like, not necessarily for like, of course, for the intent of learning the thing, but also the intent of like learning how
to teach,
and how they structured their online course. And it's really fascinating how the guitar community has been doing this, because like I have to say, I've been paying attention to this stuff for a long time. They were some of the first people to do subscription services and to like do the whole thing of like, oh, YouTube is just a taste of what I do. And if you love what I do, go to visit my website and pay for my service or these packages for lessons or whatever it is. And Tomo came out with this amazing course that I showed you, where it starts from literally like, just an introduction of who he is to like how to hold a guitar properly or how he thinks you should hold a guitar properly, to how to memorize his philosophy on how to memorize the fretboard and all of this stuff.
Yeah, I have been trying to take up guitar again. I hadn't played since like high school, but watching his course videos, I was like, oh, this is, I've taken a few courses before, online courses, and like his courses, they're deceptively simple, but I realized as, someone who is really like watching the way other people teach and the results that come from it. And this is a guy who's been teaching at Berkeley for 25 years.
Also, if you didn't know, he taught John Mayer.
Yeah,
Okay.
that too.
Yeah.
Oh, how could we forget? So he has fine-tuned his teaching so well.
Yeah.
So he knows what like the beginner needs, and he knows what you need to learn at the beginning in order to make it easier for yourself later on. And then he knows what like the intermediate needs, and he knows what like the expert needs. And he has structured his course in this way where like you can, in my opinion, if you take his course seriously, you basically get a Berkeley music education in guitar. And like that's amazing.
Yeah, I asked
for $10.
I asked you, I showed it to you because you were really inspired by this amazing video he did recently at Norm's Rare Guitar Shop, where he's jamming with these two beautiful vintage Stratocasters, these two beautiful vintage maple Stratocasters. He's jamming with a former student of his in Norm's Rare Guitar Shop, and it's just an amazing jam. Yeah. And it really, like, his solo really moved you. So that's why I showed you his course, and you were like, oh, I could do this. And I said something like, oh, if you went full Janet on this course, how good do you think you'd be in like 3 or 4 years?
I'd be like, oh, I think I can be a full-time musician.
But like, you'd only say that with confidence because you trust this teacher.
Yeah.
Like we basically took 4 lessons together. Yeah. Because I have a ton of guitars. But we took the 2 courses together, and you were just kind of fascinated about like all the even the little small sentences, the little things that you think he says in passing.
Yeah. Every sentence is filled with value. I was so shocked because he has like a really thick Japanese accent, but I was so shocked by how well he spoke. Yeah. If that makes any sense. And the ideas
he's trying to communicate with you. Very clear. He doesn't, jumble words. He's very precise about his language and what and the ideas he's trying to communicate with you, which is why he's probably like if you were to take private lessons with him, it's outstanding. It's probably really awesome.
Yeah. And so not all courses are built alike.
Right. So like, for example, like I said before, like I take all sorts of different kinds of courses, but even though it might not be for everyone, the fact that if someone so desires, if someone has the experience teaching and has the artistic prowess to design a course like Tomo, which starts from like it's this thing where he literally numbers it from lesson 1. Here, I'll tell you the first 4 episodes. Lesson 1 is like an introduction. I'm Tomo. I work here. I've taught these people. Blah blah blah. And then the second episode is, what was the second episode?
How to practice.
Yes, how to practice, because he comes out this amazing notebook thing, which is basically like you kept nodding because it was like, oh yeah, I do this, but for the company.
Yeah. It's a common thing, I think people who know how to teach themselves, like self-learners, do. But
they like write down.
Yeah, but I was the beginner or the person the reason why they're not self-learners, they don't do this. So, but like you would need to have been a teacher of 25 years to realize you need to say it. Yeah. In order for someone to realize that's something they have to do.
Yeah, and then episode 3 is about how to hold the guitar properly. And then he says something like about like, you're gonna hold this for a long time. You got to do it so you don't hurt your hands.
Which is hilarious because when I was learning guitar way back when, I knew how to hold it the proper way, and you've been consistently playing guitar for the past few years now, and
I have
you
this
were like,
thing.
wait, I I've been holding it wrong this whole time.
It's a way. It's like I like to do this thing where I wrap my hands around the fretboard so I can mute the strings. But I understand when Tomo says, and he says this in his class, like, this is all options. This is not like this is how exactly you should do it. But like when he said like, oh, you need to have a lighter like grip on it and maybe like jut your thumb out like this so that you could rest and anchor yourself.
Yeah. That
way you could just play more comfortably. I was like, oh, I see how that's really useful. And it's nice to hear somebody say that.
Yeah, it's like similar. If you want to make an art equivalent to it, he was saying how like if you do it my way, I've never had an injury. I've never had like tendonitis or whatever. And it's the same as like you need to have really good posture and the way you hold a pencil or pen or paintbrush or whatever. There's a technique to it. Again, unless you've been a teacher for 25 years, sometimes you don't think that you need to tell someone this, especially a beginner. But like, it made me realize like, oh yeah, there are certain ways that you have to hold a brush. There are certain ways. And I didn't realize like, oh, maybe like what a sign of what a good teacher is knowing the thing, like things like that.
Exactly, which brings to the next lesson 4, which is like the unpleasant, uncomfortable truth of maybe like I've seen and witnessed a lot of people tell people how they should learn guitar, and it's always like, like just learn these shapes and then we can get going. We can strum an old Beatles or something, which is like a great way, which is a way like we all want to play. But lesson 4 was about sitting there and learning the notes of the fretboard, the most unsexy thing. But it's so important. It's really, really, really important because a lot of the times if you play guitar, you memorize shapes. And it's like one of those things in art. Like we preach all the time, and I didn't apply it to music until recently. Like I preach to you guys all the time. Like you should understand what you're doing all the time, and nothing should be random. Everything should be clear and by design, and it's a choice that you've consciously made, and you'd never let anything up for chance or whatever it is. And when you're playing an instrument, especially with guitar, like Tomo says, like it's one of the only instruments that you don't really have to learn notes. You could just get into shapes like or chords and whatever way you want to understand the instrument and just go for it if you want. But in every other instrument, from piano, trumpet, saxophone, that kind of stuff, violin, you have to learn. You have to know like how to read notes. It sucks to say, but like it makes sense why lesson 4 needs to be like, you need to like sit there and like make it a routine a little bit every day to look and sit with your guitar, look at the fretboard and go do, re, mi, all that stuff, and go, this is A, this is C, this is, like, so on and so forth.
I've noticed that the best courses always include the not sexy parts. The worst courses are all just like glorifying the sexy parts of what it is they're trying to teach you. But the best courses, they really go into like minute detail.
That's why we recommend New Masters Academy a lot. It's not like, it's not like, say, schoolism, where it's like, oh, you see all this sexy art, industry art. Ooh, look at all this beautiful stuff. Like, no, in order to get there, it's not, it's like Tomo says, you gotta sit there and learn your notes. It's not like, it's not the other way around. You can't just learn. If you just copy those, you'll get it. No, there's a lot of stuff that goes in. Just like how you can copy a song but not really understand what it is. That kind of thing.
Like which means you won't be able to like make your own song.
Make your own song, exactly. Exactly.
Like you can copy a style or a design or whatever, but it does not mean you'll be able to like come up with equally amazing designs on your own. So that brings me to like, okay, so let's all agree. Our opinion is you should not go to art school in the fall.
What do you do?
In my opinion, this might be kind of controversial. You should take the year off.
Oh, Janet, controversial. Oh, that's true. You should really take a year off.
And
the rest of the year off.
Yeah. Because maybe if you were already in school at the beginning of the year, I mean, you already paid for it, so you might as well finish it. But now that like the new school year is starting, I think everyone who is considering taking some kind of art school, education, university, whatever, should take the year off, because it is not worth the money, for one. And if anything, let's say you're like a high school student going into college, you honestly should just take care. Maybe your GEs might be worth taking online, your general education classes. But other than that, I really think you should take the year off. And it's controversial because I know what my fear would be hearing that back then.
Right.
Or what my parents' fear would be. And it would be, well, then won't I fall behind? And
Everyone's falling behind.
yeah, honestly.
Well, yeah, come on. Look around us, everybody.
Yeah. And also, well, maybe that just depends on you.
Mm-hmm.
And this brings me to a little bit like into my childhood.
Okay.
My parents are really into education because they wanted me to be the first person in our family to go to college and to be like better than them. They wanted my life to be better than their life.
Yeah.
So they put everything into my education, and they cared so much about it. To the point where, like, growing up, I never had a vacation. During summer vacations, spring breaks, winter breaks, my education never stopped. And they would give me like workbooks and worksheets and educate me more, so I would be like more advanced. They would they had no business doing this because they didn't have that much money at all. They sent me to like after school programs. You know how most people have school from like 8 a.m. to 3 p.m.? I had school from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Every single day. And sometimes I had homework, on like extra homework for the weekends. So like what I'm trying to say is if you take a year off, it's completely up to you if you fall behind or not. Like they're planning, like it's sad to say, but a lot of people right now who are struggling with not having school, like even from K to 12, the more educated and the more wealthy you are, the more you have homeschooling opportunities that will further you rather than the idea of like falling behind. So, you know, that can be possible for everyone. It just depends on how much you're willing to do on your own. And at this point, you really kind of have to rely on yourself for your education during these times. And so, like, if you choose to be really productive in the year that you take off, you can, in a way, homeschool yourself. Yeah. You can really, like, put everything into, like, making sure you don't, quote unquote, fall behind. And what does it even mean to fall behind when you're going to art school?
And what if you discover that you are really good at this and you actually have the drive to learn all of these things? Mm-hmm. That's really great. That means that you don't really have to pay anything. You don't have to invest in so much. And if you realize it's not for you, then Then at least you know.
Yeah. And so we talked about how, like, you can easily just take the money that you were prepared to give to college to, like, convince someone to mentor you. Like, imagine you take, like, the most prestigious teacher you can think of, offered them the same amount of money you would have paid for, like, a class at one of these prestigious art schools, like thousands and thousands of dollars. Offer it to them directly because, truth be told, art school teachers are not paid very well. So where's the money going? You pay it to them directly, and you can, like, you are taking guitar classes, even though it's kind of uncomfortable. It's like one-on-one. You both have to wear masks.
I know, but that's like even with Tomo, it's nice to have someone there where I can ask questions or we could just relate about music it's just good to be there in that environment, doing what music is supposed to do, bring people together to make art, and it's not that great if we're doing it remotely,
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about online courses and how great they are and how, like, you need to be careful or just, try a lot of different kinds. So one-on-one mentorship or online courses, hopefully both. That's what I would recommend. But also, it's a really, really great opportunity to do things that you don't normally do, or you don't have the time to do when you're in school. So, for example, start an online business. For example, start a YouTube channel. For example, do a short film or an animated short.
A comic,
yeah. And all of these things, I forgot which podcast that we said, that we talked about this in, but like these are all things that we wish we had done back when we were just learning. Because if you do any of these things that I just mentioned, that's kind of a better education than going to art school.
Yeah, there's no better education than hands-on education, actually doing the thing you've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And learning by trial and error. It's very difficult to beat that. You have to have a really, really good teacher, in my opinion, to beat that. Just trial and error standard.
Yeah. So like, how you might be wondering, how do I make an animated short? I don't know. Figure it out.
Yeah.
That's literally what you have to do, and that experience will make you so valuable.
Yeah, that's what they told us at Art Center all the time.
I don't know. Figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if they did know, they just
Yeah, no, the whole idea was for you to figure out for yourself. Yeah.
Or like a short film. I don't know how to do a short film. I don't know how to make a movie. Go figure it out. There are plenty of YouTube videos out there. You can just grab a camera, grab your friends or family, whoever, yourself if you're alone.
Highly recommend DSLR guide.
He's so inspiring for us.
He's so awesome. Yeah.
And make a short film.
Yeah. Go
Figure
for
it out.
Go for
Use
it.
iMovie. Use
Do
any
it.
kind of free editing thing.
Nobody's stopping you. Do it. Just do it.
And by doing this, by trial and error and failing and eventually succeeding, imagine when you come back to school the next year or whatever.
How dangerous you'd be.
Yeah. You animated an animated short. You made a short film. You made a YouTube channel.
You know how to run your own little business.
Yeah. You made a comic. You figured out how to be consistent. Whatever it is, like imagine. That is not falling behind, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And you know, I always like this is something that I realized when I had started freelancing in school very early on. And when that happens, you wonder what the point of school even is, because you're like, I'm working. The whole point of going to college and university is so that you'll be prepared to work, but I'm already working. So what is the point of school? I had really considered not finishing Art Center because I was like, I can just go do my career now.
Yeah, a lot of people just drop. That's how they drop out of Art Center.
Yeah.
Drop out, but they don't feel the need to continue.
Yeah.
And continuing what means that they have to invest more.
Yeah.
You know, they might as well just go out and make money. It's not like they're checking your resume.
And part of me like kind of
for colleges, I mean. You know,
yeah. Part of me regrets not just bouncing, but you know, hindsight is 20/20. But I also like one of the arguments that was really convincing for me to leave actually was the idea that school will always be there, but this other opportunity to go work or whatever won't be. So if you are scared of like, I don't know, not falling behind or like, oh, I really want to go to this dream school, your dream school will always be there. And like, what is it if you take a year off to go make an animated short or to whatever? And especially when you're knowing that you're getting a less than education than before. Plus, if your school isn't there when you come back, you just dodged a bullet. Because what does that say about the school
about
that
the
would
school if they don't survive
through
this? Which is not looking good for the universities right now.
Yeah, that's this episode.
Some food for thought, right?
Yeah. So yeah, there are so many different options, and don't go to art school during quarantine especially.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we said before in the podcast about whether or not you should go to art school is like the hands-on experience and the making connections with people in terms of your friends And all of that is really important, but the fact that you can't get that now, at least especially this upcoming semester, that I don't see the point.
Yeah, make your own hands-on experience.
Yeah, just exactly do what she said. Go do a project. Think of it. If a semester is like, 4 months, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of time. You could, especially if you're somebody straight out of high school, you could make a project and then apply when you can actually sit down in the class and talk to your professor.
Yeah, it's different if like, come 2021, you like things are at least like you do go into the classroom.
Yeah.
Things are more normal, even though, I predict that it'll be more of the same as right now because 2021 starts in the winter. You could just apply again or just like go back, take like a year off, defer, whatever. And then just like, maybe you'll find out that you never needed art school to begin with. So this has been another episode of the Honey and Absinthe podcast. Check out honeyandabsinthe.com for our merch if you would like to support this channel. I am wearing the Run shirt today.
Yeah, leave a like and comment down below.
Please like the podcast, share, and
share.
comment. It really helps get this podcast out. It helps us grow. And follow us on Honey and Absinthe at TikTok, Instagram, everywhere else. And we'll see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.